Hi guys, Asmo here, and today I'm gonna share with you how I defeated Zarokh the Temporal, which is the fourth and last boss in the Trial of Sekhemas, because I tried twice. The first time I failed, and the second time, after making a lot of adjustments to the build, a lot of changes to the Grenadier Mercenary build to specifically target this fight, it was much easier. So I'm gonna share this with you so that you can do it yourself. I know a lot of people are playing Mercenary, especially the Grenadier builds, and they can have some difficulty with bosses, especially with the setup that people are running most commonly, which is like a high evasion based, not that much armor. So I'm gonna share with you the changes that I made first so that you know how to tackle it. The first thing that I did has to do with passive skill tree. So I removed some AoE that I have and some cooldown reduction, and I prioritized single target damage. So I picked, for example, Giant Slayer, which has to do with like damage to unique enemies, right? So rare and unique enemies. I picked up Double Pen, so I got Smoke Inhalation for 15% fire penetration, as well as Forces of Nature for another 50% penetration, which is very, very nice for bosses. I cut down this movement speed here, which is 3% movement speed, but also evasion, which we don't need. And also, I think there's another evasion node and also these elemental nodes, but that has to do with like elemental ailments. You have to like shock. There's really no time to shock him, so then it's not that efficient. So I cut these nodes, and instead I passed toward the armor here, and I picked up Iron Reflexes, because even though I don't have that much armor, I have only 4,700, it is still way better than having that much evasion. The mitigation on the damage that you're taking to your honor is way more effective than avoidance for something like the beam when you're frozen, which would basically rip your honor down. And if you don't have any mitigation, it's going to be very, very hard. So that was the first thing that I did. So basically change the passive skill tree to make it much more single target oriented. I still kept the movement speed here, movement speed here, you know, movement speed here. Movement speed is still very useful in the Trial of Sekhemas, but I prioritized single target damage, and I swapped to armor. So I removed stuff that gave me like evasion, chance to evade melee attacks, because the danger is not really dying as much as taking honor damage, which is the main problem, right? Because you cannot just flask through the honor damage, right? But you can flask through actual damage that you're taking. So that was number one change. Number two change was the relic altars. So the relic altars that I got, I'm gonna show you. We have here a few relics that give me honor resistance. So 40% honor resistance from this one and 40% honor resistance to this one. That is 80. I think the default cap is 75. So you also need a relic with 5% maximum honor resistance, and that gives you 80% honor resistance, which is absolutely insane. You're basically reducing the honor damage you're taking by 80%, right? It's absolutely crazy. Huge amount of resistance that's gonna help you so much. Like the traps are gonna just like tickle you. It's much more forgiving that way. You really shouldn't be attempting the fourth trial until you have like huge amount of honor resistance or like huge amount of maximum honor, right? You can see I have like 20% maximum honor here. Here I have bosses deal reduced damage, and bosses deal reduced damage on this one, as well as monsters deal reduced damage. That ensures that not only I will not die because of the honor, but also I will not die because of like just taking damage, right? Because I like somehow he shotguns me with some projectiles or something. So we're making sure that's also taken care of. Additional room is good. Also, I just like that from Sanctum mechanic. I have really good experience with that. So that's why I also had that, because that simply was something that I found on a relic before. So these, I think they cost like maybe 30, 40 exalts right now, and it's definitely worth getting that, because it's gonna make your runs much more safe and much more reliable, and you are gonna make some of that money back as well by doing these trials. So 100% recommend getting that. Another change I made, I already had a flask that gains charges per second, but mana was still a little bit of an issue, especially when you are on a 6-link, right? So I have here 2 6-links, Explosive Grenade and Gas Grenade. I'm gonna go over the setup here, but it's very, very mana hungry. So I did improve my gear in order to have some good mana. So I have like 700 mana with a bunch of mana regeneration. So we have here increased mana regeneration rate, for example, and large mana on this. I also have anointed this one, which is Step Like Mist, which is mana regeneration, dex and movement speed. This is a very, very good anoint. It's not very expensive, but very, very good for this specific setup. And then we're also running Alchemist's Boon. build, because I do not need Wind Dancer since I'm not using evasion anymore, right? So the Wind Dancer actually doesn't do anything as far as I know with Iron Reflexes. And then also I don't need the Herald of Ash, so I swapped the setup to Alchemist Boon, which gives me flask charges per second, so that keeps me sustained with the mana flask gaining charges. It basically doubles the charges that you're generating. And then also attrition, because even though we have Calling Strike and we don't need it for the Calling Strike, we do need the extra damage because this is like 57% more damage basically, right? It's absolutely insane amount of damage. So 100% you have to run attrition against bosses like that. So let's go over the setups that I put in here for this build. So we have Explosive Grenade with the Scatter Shot, Magnified Effect, Fire Infusion, Fast Forward, and Martial Tempo. So this is like my main clearing setup. For example, the Fast Forward helps and makes it so that if I throw Explosive and then Gas Grenade, the Gas Grenade is gonna trigger very shortly before the explosives, and they're gonna just all basically hit pretty much at the same time, right? Very closely to each other. So that's why this is set up like that with the Fast Forward here. And then in Gas Grenade, I have Elemental Focus, because since Explosive Grenade hits first, the Explosive Grenade is the skill that is going to ignite, and then the target is going to be ignited, so we can use Gas Grenade with that assumption, right? So we have Elemental Focus, which means we cannot apply Ignite. Immolate, which means we deal extra damage as fire damage against ignited enemies, but we cannot ignite, right? So this basically nullifies, you know, combines the two downsides of Immolate, and Elemental Focus is basically the same for us, so we don't really care about it. We are hitting ignited target already most of the time because we're igniting either with the Explosive Shot or with the Explosive Grenade. Then we also have Primal Armament, because a Gas Grenade, when you look at the explosion here, it should say somewhere here the conversion. So this is total damage, total fire damage, right? So basically all is fire damage. There's some lightning damage, but 100% of the physical damage is being converted to the fire damage, right? And this should say it somewhere here. On-kill effects, on-hit effects, ailments, critical hits, area damage, main hand, resistant penetration, average damage per use. It should say somewhere here, but this does convert 100% of the damage to fire, so you can just trust me on that, I guess. You can see it does 0 physical damage, right? And then we have the Fire Penetration as well, because again, this is mainly for our single target. We're not really using Gas Grenade that much for clear. Sometimes if this is like a very tough map, then sure, we can do that, but tough map often will also have like resistances, right? So the Fire Penetration will come in handy. And then Inspiration for the mana cost, because again, even with the Inspiration, this is 123 mana cost, so we cast it a few times and we're like, you know, running out of mana already. Then we have Flash Grenade. Flash Grenade is great for Mana Leech, so I am choosing to not run. There is a setup, for example, you can run, which I do run while mapping, with Devastate and Armor Explosion. So Devastate basically makes it so that whenever you stun an enemy with the heavy stun, you fully break their armor, and then when you fully break their armor and you have Armor Explosion, then you cause the explosion, which does fire damage as well. So this is great for clear, but for single target, Payload and Brutality is much better, and that will give you more leech from the Soul Thief, and combined with Heft is gonna basically just do a lot of damage. Heft, by the way, can be used in Explosive Grenade or Gas Grenade as well. It's a great damage link. It's just that there are other supports that are also good here, and not that many that can be put into Flash Grenades for pure damage. And then we have Oil Grenade with Strip Away, Encumbrance, Persistence, Explosive Shot with some like reload stuff, Voltaic Grenade, which I really don't have time to use on the boss fight, and with Attrition we have Vitality, Clarity, and Cannibalism. So that was my setup. That's basically what I did for the character, and the fight itself was very challenging, but in a very good way. It's definitely like a lot of involvement in terms of you as a player and a lot of skill expression in this. I can talk you a little bit through this fight. So basically the first most important and difficult thing is gonna be this. So he spawns these circles which are gonna freeze you if you walk into them, and you wanna try to run around him to dodge the beam that he's spawning. The beam is very hard to see sometimes. Now it's visible, but it was like kind of like not showing properly, and it does some honor damage, but it basically tickles you. So if you have armor, you're gonna mitigate a lot of that damage, and not only you're gonna take very little damage, but also you're gonna take very little honor damage. So that's why armor is super important, because this is the phase that will break your honor, right? When you run in and he like you're gonna see later another phase where the freezing circles are basically spawning right where I dodge, making it pretty impossible to dodge. So sometimes you're gonna get frozen, sometimes you're gonna get hit by these little balls because they're just flying everywhere. So I'm doing my best to try to dodge as many of them as possible, but it's not always possible. Here, this phase, this one was pretty challenging because he spawned the what are they called, the sand clocks, whatever they're called. He spawned them super far away, and you need to pick them up as quickly as you can. But I managed to do it. I think it's not that difficult as long as you just, you know, don't waste your time and walk straight to them. You should be fine. If you have like a decent movement speed, right, with like 30% on boots and like maybe 10% from something else, you should be completely fine no matter what. And yeah, we're just trying to dump damage on him. It's very difficult because I would ideally want to stand a little bit closer to him. But I have to constantly move and constantly dodge because, again, I don't have a good feel for this fight yet. This is only the second time I did it. So I'm trying to dodge as much of these balls as possible because I don't know how many of them I can actually realistically tank and how long the fight will take, because he has millions and millions of life. He has like, I think like maybe 6 to 10 million HP, something like that. I know that decimating strike at the beginning took like almost 30% of his HP. I had a good proc on it, so it was like 1.7 million or something like that, I think. So yeah, we're dodging him. He keeps like teleporting, which makes my damage way lower than it would be on like a stationary target. Here of course we get frozen. Yeah, I get frozen. But here there is like, he cut me off with the balls, so basically no way to dodge. I'm trying to dodge backwards, there is another ball spawning, so I just get hit by everything here. So you're gonna lose some honor on this phase. You have to be a god gamer and you have to play it perfectly, and you have to learn the fight and practice it multiple times until you can like not get hit by it. So swap to armor. Trust me, the iron reflex is way better than having evasion, way more forgiving for you. You can afford to get hit by a bunch of small things and you can still have honor. Of course, you will need like, you know, at least 2,000 to 3,000 honor to tackle this fight. So you need to do very well on your run. You need to, you know, not fuck it up with some crazy with some crazy afflictions or whatever. If you have terrible afflictions on first floor, maybe just restart. The coins are extremely cheap because this is not something that people spam, right? There's not that many people run it, not that many people can even run it. I would say if you don't have a good crossbow with like, let's say like 500 DPS and a 6-link, and the, you know, at least 75% honor resistance on your relics, don't even try this, right? Like just straight up, don't even try this. It's not that expensive. For a 6-link, you need like 70 exalts. For the relics, you need like also like 70 exalts for a full set of relics. That's basically what you're gonna need in order to do this, right? And for a crossbow, that's like 500 DPS, you're gonna need like, I don't know, maybe like 100 exalts or something like that. So make like 250 exalts, farming maps, get to a little bit higher level, then get those 3 things, and then you should be able to attempt this, right? And as you can see right now, we are applying, it's nice to see the cooldown reduction that we're applying to him, this blue debuff whenever we're dealing a bunch of damage. Oh, this is a cool mechanic. You have to dodge out of that. He teleports you back and you have to dodge before he does a slam. Never had a problem with this one, never got hit by it, but it's something also to keep in mind. So that's basically the fight. It is very, very fun. I like it a lot. I had a lot of fun with it. Took it down on the second try because, again, evasion approach definitely not the way to go unless you're playing a build that has like broken amount of damage, right? But this build has just a very regular balanced amount of damage, I would say. It's not it's nothing crazy. It's, I think, as as they would intend. I think they balanced this a lot. I think they tried grenade skills a lot because none of the grenade skills are really like broken. Some of them are decent, some of them are like not that good, but none of them are broken. So you have to do it in a pretty fair way. And yeah, that's it basically. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this has been helpful. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.